Well, hello everybody. This is Mr. Moore. Welcome back to Sales Strategies. This is session 3, Buyers, Needs, and Questions. And today we want to learn more about our buyers. How do we identify them? How do we know who they are and what kinds of companies? How do we understand their needs? What are needs anyway? And then how do we understand questioning? What do we do with questioning to draw out needs? So that's what we want to talk about today. So let's get started. In today's session, we want to talk about 3 things. First, we'll talk about buyers in the business-to-business market. Remember, we're in a business-to-business market, not in a retail market. We'll talk about the difference again. But we want to talk about how to identify buyers, and in order to do that, we'll have to talk a little bit about market structure. Then we want to talk about needs. What are needs? How do we understand them? And what are the types of needs that customers might have? And then finally, we want to talk about using questions to identify needs, the all-important aspect of sales where we ask customers questions. So let's get started then with buyers in business-to-business markets. Now you might remember that we talked about business-to-business markets earlier when we were talking about types of selling. We talked about business-to-business sales, or B2B, and we talked about retail sales. Well, the B2B market, a business-to-business market, and we'll use the term B2B in the rest of the course. That's what is generally used out there in the world in the market. It's where one business is selling to another business. Okay, a business-to-business marketing, very easy to understand. And then retail market. Retail is really a personal market. It's where businesses are selling to individuals. So instead of a business to a business, it's a business to an individual. When you go to Walmart, that's a business to individual. That's a retail. Okay? But remember, we're talking about business to business. So as we start talking about buyers, we really have to understand the whole structure of a business to business market. And it's not very commonly understood. Most of us are very used to a retail market where we as individuals go buy stuff from whoever we want to. But business to business is completely different. So let's look at this and learn a few things from it. Let's say that we want to sell network servers to a local business. Let's say that's the sort of the industry that we're in. We want to sell these servers that store information on networks for customers, and we want to try and sell it to a business in our area. Let's talk about how those servers get to that local business. Well, first of all, in a business-to-business market, there is a manufacturer. There is someone who makes that server, somebody who manufactures that server. And then most of the time, there is a distributor. A distributor is a company, and I work for a distributor. A distributor is a company who buys from manufacturers and sells to either contractors or end users, which we're going to look at in a minute, as a middleman. This would be a middleman. So they might stock the material, they'll offer the customers terms, maybe better credit terms than the manufacturer would offer. They're going to stock it around the country, whereas the manufacturer might have 2 stocking locations, the distributor might have 25. And so their value is stock and availability. They have it on the shelf and they have it somewhere nearby where you can get it. That's a distributor. And then a little bit farther down in the supply chain there, you'll have contractors. Now, a contractor is someone who's going to install this. So let's say that these servers were sold. They were made by a company called Cisco, and they were sold through a distributor called Ingram Micro. I believe they sell Cisco. Well, a contractor is someone who's actually going to put those servers in. A lot of times in a business-to-business market, especially when it comes to services, the customer is not going to do it themselves. They're going to hire a third party, a contractor, to do it. In the networking field, they call these integrators. But at any rate, they're really just contractors. You give them a contract to bring those switches in and install them. All right? And so then the end user is the actual local business. That's the business over here that's buying. That would be the end user. So the manufacturer sells to the distributor sells to the contractor, and the contractor sells to the end user. Or to reverse it, the end user buys from the contractor buys from the distributor, and the distributor buys from the manufacturer. Now there is also sometimes what we call a rep firm, a sales representative firm that comes in between the manufacturer and the distributor. And that's simply an organization, a company that exists to sell stuff. So instead of the manufacturer having 100 salespeople throughout the country, they will hire these rep firms who are basically salesmen for hire, and they will farm out the sales aspect of their business to that rep firm. And the rep firm will get a percentage of what they sell, maybe 5%, 10%. So sometimes that comes in there as well. Now, sort of overlaying this or influencing all of this is what we call the ACE community. The ACE community. The ACE community are the architects, consultants, and engineers that companies hire, typically end users hire, to design stuff for them. So in the case of a new building, let's say that there's a local business that's going to build a new facility. Well, they will hire an architect to design that building and write up the specifications for all the stuff that has to go in it, which may include network servers. Or the company might hire an architect to do the building, but they might hire a consultant to do all of the IT. So the consultant is just another firm that's going to design the network servers that go into that building and all the infrastructure that goes in. So those are all the players that can come into a market. And the reason I want to show you this, we're going to talk about buyers in a minute. There are buyers in all of these. But I want you to see that you can sell for any of these, and you can also sell to any of these. So you might get a job for a manufacturer, okay, working to sell. And if you're a manufacturer working to sell, you're going to sell to distributors. Those will be your customers. You're going to sell to contractors. Those will be your customers. You're going to sell to end users. Those will be your customers. You probably are going to even call on the ACE community to try and get them to spec your product. All right. If you work for a distributor like I do, you're going to sell to the contractors and the end users, and you may also go to the ACE community. The architects, engineers, and consultants have salespeople too. So you can sell for any of these, but you can also sell to any of them. So, you know, this represents both your job pool and your customer pool, okay? So when you get into your particular market, and we'll say this a lot in this session, you have to learn all of this. You have to learn, well, if you're working for a manufacturer, who are your distributors? Do you use distributors? Or maybe you sell direct, that's the term. Maybe you sell direct to the contractor or direct to the end user. And who are your distributors and who are your contractors and who are the ACE players in your market? All of that you'll have to learn when you get into your sales role. But this is a broad picture of how it can work, all right? So now let's talk about decision makers in these organizations. So let's go back to this. Manufacturer, distributor, contractor, end user, ACE. All of these, depending on who you're calling on, all of those are going to have buyers or what we call decision makers in their organization whose job is going to be to meet with salespeople to negotiate, to evaluate, negotiate, and buy products. So let's look at the types of buyers or decision makers we might find. First of all, what is a buyer? A buyer is an individual or group involved in evaluating and purchasing products and services. That's what a buyer is, or a decision maker. Individuals or groups involved in evaluating and purchasing products and services. All right, so anybody in the organization that's doing that, even if they don't have the name buyer, or you don't think of them normally as a decision maker, if they have any influence on evaluating or purchasing products, then they are, for your sake, a buyer, someone you need to talk to. And they exist at various levels in the company, depending on the type of product you're selling, generally how complex or simple it is, and how expensive or inexpensive it is. You may be dealing with different levels within the organization and the org chart. You may be dealing with somebody on the front line, somebody who's basically right at the bottom of the org chart, and they make the decision to buy whatever it is. If your product is more expensive or more complex, it may be up in the middle level of management that you're talking to, the front line and the middle level. If you're talking about something that's going to affect the entire organization, that's maybe millions of dollars over several years, you may be talking to what we call executive management. Those are the big bosses, the senior VPs and owners and CEOs of companies. Okay, so they can exist in all layers in there. And again, you'll learn about this when you get into your sales job. And then we have types here. I want to just draw a quick distinction. Types of buyers or decision makers. You have, depending on the size of the company, you're usually going to have what they call a purchasing department. Some real small companies, just individuals within the company do their own purchasing. But as you get into bigger companies, there's usually a purchasing department. Now they will end up issuing you the order, which is called a purchase order, a PO. That's always the language. When are we getting the PO? You know, they're cutting the PO this week. They're usually not very technical depending on the product. They might buy some simple stuff like office supplies or whatever, but they're not going to be technical. If you've got a product that has to be really evaluated, that's generally going to come down to a functional department, some group within that company whose job it is to deal with that. So in the case of our servers, you're probably going to be dealing with the IT department. And the IT department will make a decision based on what they want to buy, and then they will tell the purchasing department to issue a purchase order for X. And then the purchase order will come to your company from purchasing. But the decision maker really is that functional department, the IT department. And again, you know, each market's going to be different. Each company's going to be different. You'll just have to learn this as you go along. So those are a little bit about buyers. Now let's talk about needs. Needs, customer needs. What kinds of needs do our buyers have? Well, first of all, what is a need in the first place? Well, a need is something the customer is buying to meet a requirement or solve a problem. Something the customer is buying to meet a requirement or solve a problem. That is essentially what a need is. It's a broad term, but your products are designed to solve and fill needs. So let's take our server example here, and let's just talk about some of the types of needs, the kinds of needs your buyers might have if you were selling these servers. All right. Well, first of all, they'd have a direct product need. What is it that we're buying? We're buying a rack-mounted server. So we're buying a server that goes into a rack in a communications closet or a computer room. Okay. That's a direct product need. What am I trying to buy? But then we have product feature needs or requirements. So yeah, I'm buying a server, but what do I need that server to do? What kind of specs do I need? What kind of operating system? Let's say I need a Windows operating system as opposed to a Linux. I need 40 terabytes of storage. I need X, Y, and Z. Those would be the product features. Those are needs. Then I have a price and availability need. All right, I have to get the server with these specs in this budget by this time. Those are needs. Budget and time are also needs that you have to identify. So in this case, let's say it's $100,000 you have to spend and you have to have it delivered by October the 15th. Those are needs. If you can't sell me one for under $100,000, you're not going to get my order. If you can't fulfill it by October the 15th, you're not going to get my order. All right? But in addition to these, so if you're, let's say you're selling lawn services, your job is to go out and sell basically cutting grass for commercial businesses. Well, what would the product need be? We need somebody to cut the grass. That would be a service. What are the features required? It's 4 acres. We need it trimmed. We need bushes trimmed. We need it all cut and sprayed for weeds. Okay. Price and availability. $3,000 a month. You have to do it every week. You know, those would be just basic core product feature and price and availability needs. But there are also some additional ones. Let's look at a few others. There's what I call the integration need. And that is when you're selling something to a customer and they need it to work with something else they have. So if I'm selling servers, for example, is there any requirement from the customer that these servers work with any other gear or equipment that they have? In the case of lawn services, is there any requirement for us to integrate with any kind of a security system or a sprinkler system or some other kind of building and grounds type system? You know, what are the integration needs? Also, what I call a risk abatement need. Risk abatement means to get rid of. Customers need They need to know that they're not taking a big risk in working with you. So how can I limit my risk in buying this? This will come down to warranties. This will come down to brand names and how long you've been in business, and just basically giving the customer comfort that their need not to take a lot of risk is going to be filled. And then I just say unique needs. Unique needs. Needs peculiar to this customer and this buying situation. Every call is different. Every customer is different. Every order is different. A good salesperson is going to be aware and sort of fishing for things that are odd or a little bit unusual or a little bit different in a buying situation. So those are some of the kinds of needs that you're going to want to look out for. All right, now let's just move on here and let's ask about questions. Let's talk a little bit about questions. The biggest problem that you're going to have when you enter into a new sales call, a new customer, a new opportunity, the biggest problem that you have is that you don't know what the needs are. You walk in and you're totally blind. I mean, they may need everything that you offer. They might not need any of it. They may need what you offer, but you might not have what they need at the right time at the right price. I mean, there's just all these questions that you have to walk in with. And questioning, asking questions, is the way you find out what these needs are. Questioning becomes incredibly important to sales success. So we want to talk about questions for a little bit here. Now I want to give you 4 types of questions that as you go through a sales call you're going to want to ask. And these are just broad categories or types. When you go into a sales call and a sales meeting, you want to ask about the buyer and the business. You want to find out who this person is, what their experience is, how long they've been doing what they're doing, what their role is, what their authority is. You want to find out about the business. How long have they been in business? How well is their business doing? You know, what offices do they have? And that kind of thing, right? Then you want to talk about the product solution. We're going to talk more about questions here in a moment. But essentially, what do they need in terms of products or services? What problem can you solve? What need can you fill? Those types of questions. Then you want to ask questions about the decision process. Very, very important. Remember, your goal is to get orders. It's not just to be a nice guy or gal. It's to get orders. So you need to know, what is the process here for making this decision? How are you going to decide who to buy from? And then you want to find out the decision criteria. What are the key things you're looking for here? What's going to make the difference between buying and not buying? So you can sell to that, and you can figure out if you even meet it. So questions, extremely important questions that you must ask here. Let me give you some examples. And again, you know, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the specific questions that you're going to develop will depend on your product and your market and your company. So I can only give you examples. You'll have to work on these yourself when you get your job. But here's an example of a business question. What all does your company do? What do you do? Another one, another buyer question. What is your role at the company? Tell me about your role. How will you decide what to purchase? That's a decision process question. What are the most important criteria for this product? That's a decision criteria question. You see? These are open-ended, trying to get people to talk. And then for product solutions, here are a few. What kind of server are you looking for? Do you have a set of technical specs? Do you have, you know, things that you need listed out somewhere that I could take a look at? What is your budget? Now, a lot of times customers won't tell you the budget because they want you to be competitive. They want to force you to keep your price down. But so many times they'll answer that. Well, we have X budget. So it's always good to ask it. Is a warranty important to you? This is a product solution question. Remember we said about risk. You're interested in warranty, that kind of thing. So these are just some example questions that you could use in your sales call. Now for product solutions, let me walk through just a very brief way to approach this to guide the process toward your products. Not in a manipulative sort of way, but just in a managed or concerted way. So your overall goal, remember, is to determine the needs that they have. Right, that's the goal. But needs that you can fill, those are the ones that you really want to talk about. If I walk into the room selling servers, then I'm not really interested in whether or not they need their floors waxed. That's not even my realm of possibility. So I want my questions to focus on the areas where I can bring solutions. It's great to fill those other needs or to know about them, but your goal is to sell your products. So what you want to do here is think about your best product solutions. Now, in your company, you're going to have all kinds of things that you offer. But as you go through your sales the first couple of years, you're going to realize, as I've mentioned before, there's some stuff you're really good at as a company, some stuff that you are very competitive at, and you get the business when you talk about X product. And there are going to be other things that you can get sometimes, but sometimes you can't get them, and other competitors do better than you, and so on. So what I'm recommending here on this product solution question sort of strategy is think about what your best solutions are. What are the things that we're the best at? And man, when we go to market with these, we nail people. We get orders all the time. And then start with those and work backwards to figure out what kinds of questions you can ask to see if the customer is going to want to buy that product solution from you. So you're not forcing the customer to need your products here. You're just asking the questions to see if they will want what you can offer and be the most competitive at and most profitable at. So in this case, you identify your best, most valued solutions. What are the 2 or 3 things that we're the best at? Okay. And then you create 3 value areas and determine questions to ask for each. Okay, so you take a product, let's take a server. And let's say that one of the value areas in our server is price, that we are just really competitive on price. Well, then I want to ask questions that lead into whether or not the customer is really interested in a price low-cost solution. So I might ask, is your budget tight on this project? Or if you could get the server that you needed for 20% less than you would normally pay, is that something you're interested in? See, I'm leading into my value by asking those questions. Or maybe my performance is better. Maybe the speed of the processor is 30% faster than the next guy. And I might ask questions like, and I know if the customer needs that, I'm in good shape. So I might say something like, how important is processing speed to you? And are you having to process a lot of information on these, or are these just basically file servers? Or are you using these for large video files or high-end graphics and stuff like that? See, I'm going to lead into that and try and find several areas, and then ask the customer the questions before you present anything. All right. So usually when I'm sitting down at a sales call, I kind of know what my best products are. So I'm talking to the customer, and to some extent I'm trying to just find out in general what they need. But I've also always got these 3 or 4 things that I really want to ask them about to see if they need them. All right. And so you want to ask all those questions before you do anything. And this leads us really into our final quick discussion here of do's and don'ts. I want to give you 2 do's, really 2 don'ts and do's when you're asking questions to customers. You sit down in a meeting with a customer and you're asking them these questions. All right, the one thing you got to do is don't make it an interrogation. Okay, you've got to learn how to ask the questions in a conversation-like manner and kind of flow through the questions with the customer, and not just go down a checklist. What's your name? What's your age? Where do you work? How long have you worked here? You don't want to do that. You want it to be flowing. So tell me a little bit about how you came to work here. Oh wow, so you have a lot of experience in the industry then. What do you like about this company? What do you think its best attributes are? And tell me a little bit about what you guys do. I see clearly from my research, I see you do A, B, and C. Is that pretty much all you do? And so you see what I'm saying? You're just kind of flowing with this. Don't make it an interrogation. Work on being natural. And then don't present any products until you've asked all your questions. Remember Tony from the last session. Don't walk in and start talking about your product. I've got a server that does 25% faster processing. Well, that's great, but what if the customer couldn't care less about that? Well, my server's 25% less than the competitor. But what if the customer's mind, cheaper is cheaper. Cheaper is like not as good. You see? So you don't want to go and put your foot in your mouth. So you've got to ask the questions. And then you know what you're going to talk about in terms of your product solutions, and you know how to pitch them. Okay, we pitch the truth, but we still know how to tailor our messaging. Okay, so that's the end of session. This session, session 3, buyers, needs, and questions. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed sharing it with you. In our next session, we're going to talk about what I call the Holy Grail, customer relationships, how to develop and keep customer relationships. So I hope that you've enjoyed the session, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.